Hi everybody, Dr. Drew, Big Men Talking. I've decided to throw this little webinar out. It's going to be a bit of a long one, so you'll just have to cope with that. But I've been getting a lot of questions from people in regards to understanding further and deeper about dementia and dealing with dementia, making some decisions around getting a diagnosis with dementia. So I've put together a few little tips and advice, things I'm going to press my way through. And it's easy, basic information. I want you to listen to some of the things I've got to say. Take or leave whatever you like. But understand, it's all coming from a good place. And it really is about building good, strong emotional intelligence for consumers and people who have got a diagnosis, their loved ones and their families. So for many people receiving the initial diagnosis of dementia, this can bring mixed emotions and feelings of uncertainty. And these feelings and thoughts are also possible for close families and loved ones that you have around you in your inner circle, who also get affected by the initial news that the person they love has been afflicted or given a diagnosis of, and the initial news of having dementia. The truth is, no matter what your personal experience or any initial shock that you may get, the trick to becoming more at ease and more comfortable with your feelings around the diagnosis news is that your feelings are real and they belong to you. So it's a normal place to begin the journey of having a progressive illness such as dementia, that your feelings and emotions and your coping mechanisms are what will be the foundations that ground you in dealing with the diagnosis news and to put yourself in a place to go forward. One thing I am going to stress very clearly in all of this presentation is that having plans in place are the best foundations to reach the best outcomes for the journey that you're about to undertake, either having the diagnosis yourself or supporting and living with a person who has the diagnosis of dementia. So here are my 5 tips on what you can do to gain control of your life-changing process and to be successful in building a strong support program and a plan for you and your loved ones that you are considering when looking at what dementia will be and how it will impact on your life. So point number 1, my first tip, you need to understand and remove the stereotypes and the stigmas that sit around dementia. There is huge negative stereotypes around understanding dementia and a great deal of negative stigma for people who don't understand dementia. And for the world of dementia, there is still a lot of negative stereotypes around the word itself. It's most important that you and your loved ones are able to gain a good understanding of the basic science and knowledge of the syndrome of diseases that make up the dementia process, regardless of what type of dementia you have. And although the scientific knowledge is growing within the medical domain, the more we learn about dementia itself as gerontologists and science people, doctors and the likes, there is more information to be known. So we really don't know quite enough yet, but what we do know is important, and there is quite a bit of a lot of information that people can get their hands on, and the scientific knowledge is growing. And as we learn more about dementia, there's more than enough information to draw down from particular areas that will assist you in becoming more positive and confident with maintaining things like relationships and support in your experience of living with the disease and the diagnosis of dementia. I want you to understand here that knowledge is power, and that power and empowerment to a person is crucial as this type of syndrome of disease impacts on your health, impacts on your lifestyle, and above all, you'll need to have a good plan with some good decisions, and you'll have to face the aspects of deciding on good care directives, as this disease will become a terminal disease for you at some point down the line as it progresses through its processes. Point number 2, it's important for you to connect with an appropriate dementia support group. So when I think about this, there are numerous government and community-supported programs, associations that work with individuals and families and carers and professionals who are affected by dementia or who work with and support people who have dementia. So do your own research and discover and investigate what philosophies these different groups have, and what services they provide and what they offer you, and whether or not what they offer you suits you, it is good for you, and it's the information that you want, and that this organisation or association is a good fit for you. These groups can be very broad in their understanding or their approach, and some groups can be very specific in their services that provide, and you'll have to find that probably attending some of their sessions or attending more than just one service or one group is what will be necessary and needed for you to find the right fit for you or the right fit for your loved ones. You yourself, as a person with a dementia diagnosis, could be in a different association or group to that of your loved ones, so because there's different services they provide could be useful either or as a concept of learning and developing support mechanisms. These groups, as I said, are regular. You'll find them in your community, you'll find them in your state. For the rule of thumb, it really means that you have to be comfortable within that group and be mindful that as you experience your own process and journey in dementia, or if you're experiencing that of your loved one and the person that you're caring for, the people who care about dementia and who belong to these groups have a world of knowledge and experience, and they share their different feelings, emotions, and the things that they experience. So if at any point it's always a good place to go to offload, to inload, to take away, or to give to other people who are experiencing the same thing that you are in their own process of dementia. You may need to find some specific support groups, so be careful about who you choose and make sure that you're comfortable when you choose that group. Point number 3 for me today is for you to get a confidence in sharing the information with other people who have a significant influence in your life. In the beginning of the dementia process, things will still remain quite clear, and your experience of that diagnosis and your experience of what you think that diagnosis may mean will bring a lot of feelings and emotions to you. You may feel that you want to keep the diagnosis of dementia to yourself, or you may feel that you want to keep it only within your closed inner circle, immediate next of kin, or close family. This may be the best security for you at first until you become more comfortable with your diagnosis, or if at first you're worried about what others may think and their opinions of you and your diagnosis, then perhaps you don't want to lose any connections with people, or you don't want to put barriers up or have people think those bad stereotypes about you. These are important thoughts to have, and there's things you should be considering. In reality, from my perspective as a nurse and a gerontologist and counsellor of families who experience dementia, the truth is that relationships, people and connections become the strongest point and the best mechanism of support that you will utilise when the impacts of the disease of dementia become more significant and when they become perhaps more challenging in your life or more challenging in your loved one's life. Once you've understood and gained some learning from your groups around dementia, the type of dementia you may know you have, and how dementia will progress for you and the type of disease impacts it gives you, then your knowledge will make you more comfortable and more confident in your decision making. So with that then comes the place where you need to begin to plan, and part of that planning is planning who you'll share information with and determine what is important to share and what's important not to share. And it's really important to understand the people around you who you love also love you, and it's important that they have the right information so they can support your desires, your wants, and meet your needs. Remember that your initial feelings at diagnosis that we spoke about earlier are important to you, and they need to be emotionally and intelligently reflected on. Those initial feelings at diagnosis also should strike you to think about how others will feel and how you and those other people can share your insights of your life, the personal aspects, your aspirations and considerations of what's coming. You need to supply your loved ones with the right information and tell them why you consider them to be important in your life, that you are wanting to share the information, and what role that you have an expectation that they will play around you and with you as your disease progresses and begins to have a greater impact on your life over time. Always be mindful that some people may choose in your inner circle or friends and connections to either have or want to have an active supporting role, or they may choose to want to be less involved over time, and their involvement or their want to involve may change as your disease changes and the impacts become more prevalent. Be respectful that this is their choice as well, and they will probably transition and move and become fluid with your changing life, but be mindful that we need to have positive conversations and we need to respect everyone in the process of how dementia will impact on your life. Point number 4 for me today is to advise you to engage with your health professionals and to begin the process of investigating, looking at and confronting the Advanced Care Directive and advanced planning, and to do it early. So the best practice that we know of around this issue is that early detection and diagnosis for dementia provides us with the best aspect to plan for the best outcomes. It allows us to get the best care support programs around individuals and families, and allows the programs and support to evolve out of careful collaboration and care planning. So utilise your GP or medical director or specialist in regard to taking a holistic approach, which means looking at you inside and outside, your needs and wants and desires, and make sure that referrals are being used so that collaboration amongst multi-disciplines and different types of people are being used. There are many health professionals you can use to support you in your processes of living with dementia. And there are many people who have a specialty and a focus and a passion for working with people and families who are impacted or affected by dementia. Most important, the one thing to consider is the process of dementia and that knowledge that you gain about what you're about to experience and how it can affect your life, but to remain positive, that your life can remain as positive and as normal as possible within your home environment and around the loved ones that have most meaning to you. And it can be a positive and active care planning process which is centred around your need and also takes the partnership of other people into consideration. And you want to be able to focus on lifestyle and leisure planning and connection planning with the things that you love the most. Within this, there's a second issue of being confronted by the reality of what dementia is and what dementia does to a person and to the loved ones that support that person. Dementia is a debilitating syndrome of disease and its impacts will increase. Eventually, it will require a palliative approach and the view of palliative care and the construction of a care plan that will include end-of-life process for end-stage dementia. And for many people, their wishes to remain at home and to remain engaged and around loved ones for as long as possible is very strong. This approach is quite common and something I value and I always advocate for my patients that I work with, but it's also an approach that is totally achievable. So don't be told or accept that you can't stay at home for as long as possible, and I can assure you with proper care planning that is easily achievable. However, it will require some critical thinking and some clinical decision-making and some very careful planning and decision-making in regard to the support and services that you may need and that family may need to support you on that journey. Financial costs will always be an issue, and they are significant because many of the services are funded, but many of the services are not funded. And as your impact and your experience with dementia changes, some of these services may be needed to be increased. And you will need to discuss this openly with care planners, case managers, or support people around you. And it is an impact on your loved ones, their health, and the professional carers you work with to make sure care directives are clear and it really stabilizes and works with your emotional intelligence and the groundwork you do to accept and reflect and know yourself, to know your disease, and to know where this disease is going to progress to. And finally, within this little section, as difficult it is, we have to understand and we must accept that advanced care directives and advanced care planning will be the most significant control factor that you will own, and the best measurement you will get that allows you to express and hold on to the power that your needs and wishes around the end-of-life care that you will require will remain intact and will be well known by the people who support your journey. Because those decisions become very crucial when your dementia and its signs and symptoms move to a stage where you are unable to express your wishes and desires and unable or don't have the ability to inform others of your advanced care directives and your end-of-life wishes. So end-of-life and care planning in that area is extremely important, and I want you to consider that, as challenging as it is where you need to begin a thought process early. My last point number 5, is for you to design that care support plan and choose the right services and people to work with. So although most people want to remain independent at home and can have control over their lives fully until the end of their life pathway begins, the reality is that with a lot of the signs and symptoms and impacts of dementia, that those realities become very stressful for many people and almost sometimes unachievable. If your primary carer is a loved one, a husband, a wife, a spouse, a child, please remember that he or she is not a superhuman being, and that more specifically, they still need to remain that significant loved one and person in your life, and become that love and passion and influence. And as an example, a spouse who now becomes a carer needs to also remain a spouse or a loved one, and not lose that connection with you as a person with the diagnosis, and they don't need to transition into becoming just a carer of a sick person with a disease. We do see it regularly, and I regularly see it because of poor planning, poor communication, and people not facing the impacts or the journey and the expectations of a progressive illness such as dementia. Care services around care planning and setting up case management are wide and varied, and you need to investigate what purpose they serve you and the connection you have with the person who's going to probably be the clinical leader and the decision maker to support your wants and your needs, and what purpose they will play as the dementia progresses and we move down towards end stage. Domestic services around the home and around your life are extremely important, and when a spouse's time is being taken up in these domestic services and extra services to support care and nurture, it becomes very difficult for them to be a loved one and to love and nurture and to allow you to remain calm. So it's better to get domestic services and paid services in, or funded services, so that your loved one and your carers, or the people who do care about you personally, become or stay those love connections and personal connections, rather than people who are busy doing tasks and domestic services and applying care support within the activities of daily living. So it's important to understand you need to engage these services and you need to plan them well, because although you may want and wish your loved ones to be there all the time, we don't want to transition them out of being loved ones and just being care providers. Professional carers are available. They're wide and varied. They're everywhere, particularly in Australia and in America and the UK. They're everywhere. They're diverse in the way they give their support. There's lifestyle independence, maintenance, daily routines, transport, shopping, travel, home maintenance, connection, groups. And these things need to be shared amongst your plans and shared amongst your services. Professional services, medical and clinical services will also be able to be supplied to give close support to allow you a normal lifestyle as possible and to keep you engaged in the things that have meaning and have purpose without developing burdens within the care program. So investigate your options, investigate service providers, have a look at what's available, and use these points I'm giving you to build your confidence in choosing the right things you need when looking at planning your care for dementia. Please look at what providers ask and cost. I've done some webinars recently on cost of administration, logistics, and how much funding is needed. And please be conscious of the fact that you may need the care and you may be too economically supported and have too much retirement money or money that you may need to have an out-of-pocket expense rather than a government service. Out-of-pocket expenses will be required at some point, and particularly as the care need picks up in time and it becomes more full-time care. Determining how much control over any package or any funding you have will be entirely done or processed in the beginning of your planning, and it's also very important. Respite care, which gives your loved ones and families a break at certain times, is very important. I value respite care because it allows that break and transition for a family to remain family and have a break from the challenges of caring for a person who progresses through their dementia. It's important to give the spousal family members or loved ones a break and allow them to seek some help and support, and it always should be a part of your care plans. If needed, residential care is available and should be engaged. Don't be afraid of what residential care means or nursing home care. And for many people within Western cultures, it does become a good choice for end-of-life care, and it will be a choice for many people that they have no choice but to enter to save and stabilise family and commitment. So look at respite, look at residential respite, and look at long-term respite as a planned service. If the need for residential or nursing home care has to be engaged, ensure that you investigate the right home. Go along to some of these homes early in your process of your disease. Meet the people. Communicate with families who also are placing loved ones with dementia into these services. Check out the environment. Look at the costs. And have a taste, smell and feel for where it is these new businesses are sitting. You'd be quite surprised. Look for a service that suits you and that you can connect with. Remember that care homes are usually accredited and should be accredited, although there are some good non-accredited ones. Care homes should have full-time nurses on duty and in the service as a matter of ethics and law and responsibility to clinical governance and the philosophy of good care for people with dementia. And they should have and supply a good high standard of long-term care. The important message I really want to get across there is don't look at nursing home care or residential care as the enemy, because for many, many people it may be the end process that requires that quality and respectful, dignified care process in a professional business that is trained well to do the job. So the important message I share here overall is when you're dealing with your diagnosis and looking at your prognosis with dementia, you have a long way to go in many cases, and some people perhaps a short journey to take. But at some time you have to realise that dementia has no cure. It is a progressive illness that will eventually lead to a terminal phase at some point. Being diagnosed with dementia does not mean that it needs to be stressful and a negative experience. And the stronger you build your emotional intelligence, the better that your planning will become to face the impacts of dementia as you experience them in your life. Identify that there is a great deal of information. You will not be short of support services and information, and you don't have to take these journeys alone. Support services, support groups are available, and health professionals are now very attuned and very qualified in focusing on the needs and the support services for people with dementia and their families. Take control of these diagnoses, take control of the journey, and your experience with dementia will more than likely be a more positive one than you expect, and less, or a journey that's less full of fear. It will also build strong relationships for you and allow your loved ones to remain confident as they experience their grief and loss through watching and supporting the process. It's a shared journey that you're about to take, and for you to continue a life that is full of positive activities and goals and achievements and love. It is done through professional care planning, through emotional intelligence, and being positive. Professional care is always available. Having a stable emotional intelligence is important, and it will be your best asset when you have to start to plan care. I will end this session on a small note, but a very powerful message and an important note, and something that I want everyone to think about. If you don't have a plan for dementia, dementia will have a plan for you, and it probably won't be the plan that you're expecting. So be brave and be confident. And in the fact that living with dementia does not have to be entirely a negative process or experience, and good planning is the foundation for getting the best outcomes in care. I'm Dr. Drew. I wish you all your best journey. I'm available for advice. Send me your notes and letters. Stay in line with me or connect with me in social media, and I'll try to put more of this information out. Happy aging.